Uh, for me, I tell you, it's just been an eye opener from the standpoint that there are so many little pieces that I had no clue about. Okay. They're just little things that really are so significant, but nobody ever tells you about it. It's like a little secret that everybody's keeping. Okay. Just when we sat down and I saw the wall drill before and I looked at it, and then I had heard you talk about like the chalk mark across the wall, and that didn't come together until a week ago when you said, "Hey, I'm just do the wall drill, show me you're doing it." And I did. He said, "No, you need to do it like this." And and the basic piece was getting that rotation and understanding more about what you meant when you said the sweep the floor, okay, in that turn. And it's like when you sweep that floor, you now all of a sudden it's very different than turning. All right. There's a turn, but when you're sweeping the floor, it's a very different move. Okay. You can go right now on all the things that everybody talk about, yo, drop, turn your shoulders, take your shoulder back, and you hear that over and over again. Nobody talks about it from the standpoint of sweeping the floor. And that little distinction, that little tiny distinction makes a difference between getting your weight shift to happen and being able to get the shoulder down and getting that elbow to come through the whole movement. That little thing makes all the difference in the world,
Yeah, you're
you
right.
know?
Just
And and I would never have figured that out if you had not pointed out the little differences in your training and in your coaching and what we're doing. Just the finesse swing, just how understanding how that thing works and what it does. And you know, people struggle with their finesse shots and the short, 10, 20, 30 yard and 5 yard and 7 yard chips and hits in that pitching in that area. It's that's one of the things that people struggle with all the time. You chunk it, you hit it fat, you're doing all of that until you learn how to do that finesse swing and what it really is in doing that finesse swing, you're never going to master it. You know, you're never going to do it. I played golf, like I said, several weeks ago before I got sick, and I hit. I was it was on a par four. I hit it was a I can't remember how far, but it was a shot that required a layup to about 100 and something yards from 130 yards from the pin because there was a ravine in the middle that you had to get over, and they had sat on a hill, and then you had the green. All right. I hit an 8 iron, so I was about 155 yards from the pin. I hit an 8 iron, but I pulled it so that it went to the left of the green, and right off the green, it landed. There's just crap, right? It rolled off and landed down the crap, just tall grass, shit like that, but sparse enough, right? So I was probably maybe 20 yards from the pin and downhill. So it was like this. I'm down here and I have to chip it high enough to get it up there, get it to land on the green and stay there, right? And so I went back and I remembered the finesse wedge and I took the finesse wedge and just very swing easily, let it come through, let the waist that follow through had to happen. The thing just went beautifully up there, landed right on the green. Now it was a downhill slope, so it landed on the slope and rolled past the pin. But like the three other people I were playing with, they were like, wow, that was a hell of a shot, right? I could have never executed that shot before. Never. It was one of those things that you'd get there, you'd panic, you'd sit there going, oh, fuck, now what? How am I going to get this shot done? Getting stuck behind the sand bunker. Okay. There's always, okay, I'm going to chunk this into the sand. It's going to chunk. No, hit that finesse wedge, let it float over the top of that, land on the green. You know, that's where you start seeing the difference in our game, in the strokes that we start saving,
Yeah.
and
And we talked
and
about that.
that's
Yes.
the
We talked about that yesterday about the hand speed, right? So if we take
yeah,
if we take a straight line from my left shoulder to my hand and the handle and the club head, and if you just turn the club this whole unit back in one motion and through in one motion, it's constant speed, right?
yeah,
But if
yeah,
you hinge up and then you let the club head pass your hands, the club head is traveling faster than the hands.
right,
It has to, right?
yep,
So the speed. So when you can get when you can train your hands to come in at a faster speed, whether the club head is in line or club head is back here, and you rotate congruency with your knees, your hips, your torso, and you learn how to just work on speed with
yep,
hands, and then you clip the low point, which we're going to talk about um, here in a second. You clip the low point, then you're going to get really good at finesse wedges. And when we
yeah,
talk about finesse wedges, if you're at a carnival and you take a ring and you try and throw it on top of those bottles, you're tossing the ring. That's finesse. If you're playing high level darts, you're throwing it pretty fast and uh, into the bullseye or the triple 17. So the finesse is really just means light. Like if there was a ball, if there was a ladybug on the ball, you'd want to move the ball
yeah,
without harming the ladybug.
right, yeah, and I just feel bad for these people that are not seeing what you're offering them, because this stuff is amazing. I mean, I have never seen anybody talk about this stuff, right? Nobody ever talks about it. And I belong to Golf Pass. They have these videos and they'll show all these people, and you get, those squawk box people talking on there all the time. And they talk about how, do your chipping and how you do this, but none of that gets into any detail on how to really do it. It's all fluff up here.
Well, that's the truth. I mean, there's an infinite amount of information on the World Wide Web,
Yep.
but golf is not a traditionally a learning sport because you can't just watch something or read something and all of a sudden it becomes a new pattern because golf in essence is a motor control skill like riding a bicycle. So you can't have your 4-year-old kid watch a YouTube video on how to ride a bicycle and then go ri ride a bicycle. He has to
Exactly.
learn a new pattern, correct pattern first. How do you do it? And you mentioned that one little thing. Well, you've gotten a whole bunch of things, and then that now these one little things are the new distinctions that's going to allow you to get mastery.
Absolutely. I think that I'm starting to see my swing and my patterns change. But here's what's been interesting is that I've been sick for a long time. I haven't played for a while. I've just been doing my stuff at home, just practicing at home, the finesse swing, and then getting a feeling for that. And then a few weeks ago, I'd gone out and played with our group over here, which I told you about. And then a couple of weeks before I got sick, I was up and had gone to play golf, and I got sick over there. But two things was very interesting. And I was with a guy that we partnered up, didn't know, hadn't met him before, and his thing was, man, your tempo is amazing. He goes, I wish I had tempo like that, right? And I got that same comment several weeks before with a local group that I played with, and they're like, you know, your swing is so smooth, it's so nice. What's going on? It's like, you know, I'm starting to see the simple things that I've been working on coming together. Okay. And I think that that level of comfort knowing that now I'm where the swing as it becomes body memory, muscle memory, that these things that I've been working on and fine tuning as they start getting incorporated, I'm going to see a significant drop in my handicap very quickly.
Yeah. And so if you look at this pie chart, we talk about 5 skills: putting, finesse wedge, bunker, disc switch, full swing. Those are the 5 skills. Then you get fitness, core strategy, and mindset. So you have to, one, learn the knowledge, and then you have to train it in block practice, little block increments, 3 to 5 minutes, 7 days in a row, and then 21 days in a row. And then you have to practice it into a routine. And we've had quite a few people ask, well, how do I get consistent ball striking? How do I find the, how do I hit the ground properly to take a proper divot without fatting it or thinning it? And it first of all has to boil down with, everybody has a yardstick in our program. So what I would do is I would measure the length of your shoulders. And I think I'm just going to say mine are 20 inches, right? So if my shoulders are 20 inches, what you would do is you'd go to the hardware store or Home Depot and you'd get a 30-inch dowel. And so what you would do is you would take and you would put a line here and a line here. Now that's 20 inches wide. And so this is going to be my left heel and this is going to be my right heel, because what Hogan talked about, and I'm gonna tell you about Hogan. I mean, the guy was the best ball striker. He says he used the same fundamental swing for every shot he plays. On standard shots, the ball should be spotted in the same position relative to the left foot. So he spotted a half inch to an inch inside the left heel. And the reason he did that, because he did that massive, we'll use the term wall drill. He took his center of mass, he took his right butt cheek on the wall with the chalk and slid it already to the target. He already got his center of mass to the target area or towards the target. And then and that's why he said to start the downswing, I just turn my hips. And that from getting that center of mass to the target, by turning the hips, he transfers his weight from his right foot to his ball, his left foot, and just rotated as hard as fast as he could. That's why he said he wished he had 2 right hands. So you can be sure to play the ball shade farther forward or back. It varies from individual to individual. So what we've got to do is we've got to look at ball position. So this is the ball position right here. So you take this dowel and you put your lines on here, and this is the left foot and this is the right foot and this is the heel right here. And so if this is the center of your body, you might start it at 2 inches and then you run your 2-inch drill, but you got to go through a routine. And I'm going to toggle back and forth to these images. So you set up your station and you put that. So I have my alignment rods for the target line. I'll have this line here, or you can put your dowel right there. And then you can see that my hand is about 2 to 3 inches inside my left heel. So that's constant ball position. And so you train on the range to have the exact foot set up over and over and over. And then all you would do is, if the medium iron, let's say that the medium iron is right here, we'll just say that this is my 7 iron. And so my 7 iron is just going to have my feet square the target line. And then when I want to move a shorter iron, I'd bring my feet closer. I'll do it on the dowel. So here's the left foot, here's the right foot, here's the heels, here's the center. And so my ball position is constantly going to be right here. Here's the ball. So all I would do is, if I was playing if I wanted to move, we'll just say that this is a standard 5-iron shot, because Hogan talked about, whatever the width of your shoulder is, 19 inches, you'd have the dial set at 19 inches for a standard 5-iron. So when I want to move the 7-iron, I would just move my foot a little bit closer to the ball. I move my right foot closer to my left foot, but I also move my right heel a little bit further or closer to the ball. So that'd be this 7, 8, 9, wedge, and so forth. You're just going to move your feet closer.
So at some point, he's even got an open stance, right? When he's doing his wedges because
Yeah,
of that.
that's what he does. Yeah. But everyone's different. You're going to have to figure out what you want to do first. And this is where we have to come to understanding low point. Because if this is where if this is where your right foot is, and this is where your left foot is, if this is your ball position, 2 or 3 inches, and this is the center of your stance right here, it's the center of your stance. If you keep moving your ball back here, this ball is definitely or most likely going to start out to the right unless you pull it, because your brain knows it's too far back in its stance. If the ball is up here, it's going to start left. And especially if the driver is over here, it's definitely going to start left. And if the driver is over here, it's definitely going to start right, and it's going to be a descending blow, and you're going to get tons of spin. And it might never get off the ground. So training ball position is super important. And so the easiest way that I recommend doing it is to get a dowel, and you grab a Sharpie marker, and you can put your foot line here as red for your inside of your heels. You can put a center mark here for red. That's the center. And you can put a black mark here and say, this is where I want to put my ball every single time. And then try that. And that might be too far in the middle. You might want to try it up here where Hogan had his, or you might want to try it here close to the middle, depending on where the bottom of your arc is. And you take this dowel, put it in your golf bag with your yardstick, and take it to the driving range, and with your alignment sticks and your alignment rods, and train and then practice developing a routine, having a setup station, having this here, right? So here, this is probably where I would start to test it out. I'll say, all right, I'm going to start with this ball right here. This is probably about 2.5 inches inside my left heel. And if that works out, great, then that's going to be where it's at. Or maybe you want to have it up here because you have a lot more center of mass, hip rotation on the back, and you really slide forward. And if you don't slide forward, maybe you put it in the middle of your stance. But that's what training's all about. And to answer your question, you said, well, he in a wedge shot, he brings this foot a little bit closer. And if it's closer and your feet are closer together, but this is still, the ball is still here.
Same place. Yeah.
Well, it's not further back in the stance. It's still in the same position if you have the proper and consistent hip slide, hip turn, weight transfer to the left, to the target.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. It really does.
Consistent ball position,
Yeah.
finding the bottom of your arc. And the bottom of the arc is not going to be consistent if you don't have consistent weight transfer from the right side to the left side. And that can be really keyed up by just really looking at this image here. You're going to have this much hip slide. And if my hips are sliding that far, well, my hand should be sliding that far. And ideally, with a really good impact, this is where the club head will be slightly behind your hands. And then this is all in alignment. This little right there. The hips have rotated, open, and the hips have shifted forward.
Absolutely. No, and all of this, I think talking about it makes a big difference because it's now starting to make sense when we start talking about having that same consistent, you know, ball position, having your bottom of the art in the same place all the time. That really goes back to the fundamentals that you've been talking about as far as, the backswing, the initial, couple of inches, getting the shoulder turn, getting that sweep movement happening, getting your butt cheek to move, towards a target. Um, and when you do that, that actually, you're right, it shifts your entire mass forward. So then all you have to do is turn. Because that positions you in that. Now, if we can repeat that over and over again, then we're going to get that consistent ball strike that everybody's talking about.
Yeah. Calvin Peete, for a full decade, from 1979 or for 10 years in the 80s, 10
Yeah.
years, he was he only missed fairway one fairway I'm sorry, one out of bounds, one penalty shot, one time in 10
Wow.
years on the PGA Tour.
Wow.
And the reason he said that was consistent ball position. That's how important it was. And for 9 out of the 10 years, he was number one in greens and regulation.
Amazing.
So if we go to some of his, you know, videos, greatest driver on the PGA Tour. So driving accuracy, 81, 82, 84% in the 1990s.
Wow. Pretty amazing.
He said the most important thing for accuracy is ball position. And that's what we're talking about in these images here. We're just talking about ball position, consistent ball position, finding the bottom of the arc, having a routine, measuring it exactly out. And you can get a dial for a couple bucks at the hardware store and use a Sharpie and set it up for your shoulders. So I would likely use, a yardstick, measure the width of your shoulders, 18 inches, 20 inches, and then put it 20 inches, and you'll know that that's your stock 5-iron stance between the inside of your heels, right to left.
Excellent.
This is Calvin Peete, one of the most successful African Americans to ever play the game. He won the Players' Championship and was a member of multiple Ryder Cup teams. But his defining on-course achievement was becoming perhaps the most accurate ball striker in golf's history. No golfer in the history of the men's game hit more fairways more often than Calvin Peete, and he did it with a homegrown golf swing.
So the routine is critical. You've got to have a routine. And you can look at what he's doing this, it appears that he's setting up for the exact same routine.
It's a golf swing which may look peculiar to the rest of us, but take a closer look and you might just understand how he became.
That looks like one inch off his left heel.
Okay, let's break it down.
Look where that ball is, look where the divot is.
Yeah.
It's hard to overstate just how accurate Calvin Peete was from tee to green. Peete led the PGA Tour in driving accuracy in 1981 and then repeated that feat in 1982. He did the same thing in 1983 and Messi's penalty success rate over his career. It's a higher percentage than the NFL. Over a decade, Calvin Peete hit more fairways than Roger Federer won tennis matches in his career.
Jeez.
Calvin also finished inside the top 2 in greens in regulation on tour in 5 of those years. And if you're wondering how many balls he hit out of bounds over the course of his entire career, the answer is quite simple. In over 1,200 competitive rounds on the PGA Tour, Calvin Peete hit just 1 golf ball out of bounds. It's no wonder Lee Trevino's nickname.
So he averaged 13 greens in regulation.
We call him Xerox. Everything is a copy, and he gets that ball so straight.
To better understand Calvin Peete's golf swing, you must first understand where he came from. Pete was one of 18 children growing up, and he spent most of his youth on a farm in Florida. He didn't take up golf until he was 23 years old. When he was a child, he once fell out of a tree and badly broke his left arm and elbow. Without the money to see a doctor, Pete's arm healed incorrectly, which is why, until his dying day, he was never able to fully straighten his left arm. This became the defining quality of Calvin Peete's golf swing, and in many ways,
Look at the
its
shoulder
greatest
turn.
asset.
Look at that shoulder turn.
While other players create speed and power,
His head's
by
right over his
stretching
right
and
knee.
lifting their arms up and away from their body, Pete's
Yeah.
perpetually bent left arm meant he
Look at
simply
that shoulder
couldn't
turn.
do that.
And we talked about that earlier. I mean, sweeping under the chin.
The option was to keep his left arm tethered really closely to his body throughout his entire golf swing. This, interestingly, is actually the trait of another legendary ball striker, Ben Hogan. He considered it hugely important to his own golf swing. Because the arms and the body remained so closely connected throughout the swing,
Wow.
it meant that as Pete rotated through on the downswing, his arms and body turned through in one singular motion, similar to how a figure skater pulls their arms close to their body when they begin to spin really fast. But what he lost in power, Pete more than made up for in accuracy, as he told Golf Digest in 1982. In a way, the crooked left arm does me some good, he said. It naturally stays close to my side on the downswing and through the ball. This helps me swing the club down on an inside path, and my left arm folds naturally after I've hit the ball. The final ingredient to Pete's legendary accuracy, in his own words, was his ball position.
The ball position is very important in driving, making sure that you maintain good ball position, consistent ball position, where the bottom of the arc meets the ball every time in the same place. Very important. If I move my ball position around, then I move the bottom of the arc around. I don't want to move the ball position. You may get away with moving the ball position on iron, to hit it high, to hit it low, to hook it or to draw it, but with the driver, you really only want to hit one shot, and that's a straight shot.
The reason why this is so important, as Pete says, is because the bottom of golf swings work like an arc. They go from high to low to high again. If the ball position moved around, it meant Pete would hit the ball slightly differently every single time, which would rob him of the consistency he needed and later perfected. Pete's goal was to hit the ball slightly on the upswing with each drive, which meant placing the ball slightly inside his left heel. That's why he was so focused on making sure the ball was in the same spot every single time. The end result was a man who discovered on his own what worked for him. He rose from nothing to become one of the greatest black golfers to ever play the game, and one of the best ball strikers of his generation.
Pretty cool stuff, man.
Amazing.
So can't get more clear than this, right? Here, 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 here. You got to pick one spot for your irons and one spot for your driver. Or make them all the same. Randy, hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Good to see you. Good to see you, man. Any
Indeed.
questions? Any other questions you guys have?
I don't have a question, but I just want to reiterate on Ben Hogan staying connected. That especially during the takeaway, having your like for me, raising my arms up and then have them fall and gently touch my thorax, my torso when I feel that connection, then bending down to the ball. Now I'm perfectly connected, and I can just move my hips. Triangle stays intact, right hand comes up, puts it perfect in position and fire through the ball. That came together for me along with when you discussed the wrist placement the other day. And man, that has completely changed everything because I can go at that ball as hard as I want now because I'm connected. And it's just
Explain more what you mean about
cleared up something.
that.
So I appreciate
Explain more what you mean about that wrist placement so we can tie it in here.
So when we talked, was it last week? You mentioned what the wrists do. Yeah, that part right there. So that added pop coming through just added so much more penetrating ball flight, more compression to the ball, and then because I'm really not swinging it don't feel like I'm swinging it any faster, but I've picked up club head speed because of that, and it's dramatically changed ball flight.
So I would recommend everybody go and find that image in Ben Hogan's book or even YouTube. Ben Hogan drill, right? Ben Hogan drill, Ed Sullivan show. Ed Sullivan. And we'll find it on YouTube, right? It's fine on YouTube.
Flex your sides with your elbows and visualize your elbows being attached to your body and to your arms instead of at your shoulders. And just start moving your body from right to left around in a circle.
So you got to take some time and really spend 5-10 minutes a day for a week really trying this, because the first time you try it, you might not really understand it, but you'll notice in the first from the club head getting here and his arm maybe at 7 o'clock, you can see that he's primarily moving his knees and his hips.
Holding your
So really, he's not doing anything. He's allowing the rotation backwards, the turning backwards of the knees and hips to drag the whole torso hand power package combination together. And he's not doing anything with his wrists. The club head, if you take a motion back, the club head will want to rise on its own effort.
elbows in your side, right in your side. Now, we can't go around a golf course doing this all day, so we must lengthen this swing somewhere or other. See?
So right there, that right elbow is connected. There's probably 110 degrees of wrist cock between the shaft and his left hand arm wrist. His shoulders right there look about 75 degrees. His hips look about 35 degrees. And he's loaded up on his right side. His nose is directly over his foot.
This is an absolutely full swing.
Now you can see here, he still hasn't rotated that foot, right? This is a training exercise. He's trying to keep this stable base so he feels all this connection. And then after he swings, you might not even see him still lift that foot fully. So, but if he was actually playing golf, you'd see that tip of that toe just touching the ground. So I highly encourage you guys to do that drill over and over and over. Great job, Randy. That's awesome.
That's a great visual aid.
So that's all I got for us today, unless you have some other questions.
No, thank you very much.
Question. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Hello? You can hear? I don't know if you can hear me because before I just joined it late, so I'm sorry. You were talking about something about the irons and the ball placement in the irons. I thought like as you go back to the 8 and 9.
Looks
think
like we got
lost her.
disconnected.